My name is Chris Mensa, 40-something-year-old tattoo artist. I'm not giving you all that. And I work out of my home studio in Capitol Heights, Maryland.
Watson Sproul, aka the Ink Bully. I'm working at House of Bully in transition to Washington, D.C.
My name's Nelson Arias. We're in my studio, Signature Art Studios, and we're in College Park, Maryland. I also have a studio in Pennsylvania. So why do you guys think there's such an underrepresentation of black artists, just generally, not just in this area?
Generally, I think because, for what it's worth, generally, when people think tattoos and they think tattoo artists, it's still the stereotype running around of the white biker guy. You know, so when it comes down to black tattoo artists, we have to kind of get rid of the stigmatism of attaching hood with tattoo and black. I think that's a thing that you have to separate first, and then, hopefully, in time, shit'll catch up. Just like how the whole craze with Black Panther and the money that was spent and invested there, and saw how that kicked back. I think it's a matter of due time.
Yeah, it's interesting you say like the culture of how people think of black tattoo artists, because like if you look at say like Latino artists in the West Coast, that was all prison style tattoos. That was all hood. I specifically remember being in a shop one time and I was doing lettering. This is before Big Me's, before BJ Betts. Yeah. And it was like when lettering was first coming out. And I was at a shop and a lady came in, soccer mom type lady, and wanted a name. And I had been looking at BJ Betts, all that kind of stuff. So I was doing like fancy, what I consider fancy, feminine, filigree type letters. And just this asshole I worked with came, he hated everything, granted, but he comes up and he's like, man, don't nobody want that gangster shit, that gangster lettering.
Right,
and I'm thinking, this ain't gangster, like this fucking cursive with filigree.
And it's beautiful.
But that was his perception.
His perception. And perception, let's take it back. Perception is a big thing. Tattooing was tribal at first. Yeah. There was the Polynesian, there's Japanese, which is Tabori, and there was the tap method. So everything, because it was on darker skinned people, was big, black, bold outlines.
Yeah, I never thought about that, man.
And then once it became electric, which what the white man into the art, there were colors, yellows, reds, greens, and you can apply more colors to fairer skin as opposed to dark skin. And that's where we got the whole revolution of the old school tattoo, big sailor, eagle on the chest.
More American traditional.
More American traditional. Yeah. That's where it came. But of course, Japanese and the Polynesians were doing it way, and the Maoris were doing it way ahead, but it's all big, bold, and there's lines, and there's meaning for every line, as opposed to just being a symbol or anything. And it's way more personal, as opposed to what a lot of people get now. A lot of people now get affirmations and everything.
Yeah.
Usually it was more like a rite of passage. Yeah. And now it's more just, the thing to do.
Yeah. I like this band, so I'm gonna get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have faith, so I'm gonna get faith, so everyone can see that I have faith.
Or just like kanji up and down. Yeah. I don't even know what the fuck it means.
Should say like shrimp fried rice?
It probably does. Dude.
All fell victim to the kanji.
Thank you, sir.
He already took it.
Yeah,
so. He couldn't wait.
Salute. Salute.
Or I know, like when I first asked the question, you said generally, but like locally, like in this area.
I guess locally in this area, it still rings true with the whole stereotype of tattoos and who does them and who does them the best. And personally, I guess
I don't want to even interrupt you. I'm not that guy. But if I walk into a place and I want to open a shop, and a white guy with as many tattoos as I have walks into a shop, who do you think's getting the shop? As well as I'm spoken, as well as clear as I speak, and as nice as my diction is, there is going to be a discrepancy because of who I am and what I look like.
Yeah.
No matter what my past is, no matter what my future looks like. And you know, we have to break down those stereotypes. That's why when I do conventions and when I go visit other tattoo artists, I talk to them and let them know who I am, what I am, and where I'm trying to go. I don't want it to be a hood.
Right.
I never wanted to be a hood tattoo artist. I wanted to be a tattoo artist.
Right.
I wanted to be an artist, period. Tattooing is just the art that lended itself to me the best.
Yeah.
You know?
Now you bring up a good point though, because it's like, how can I say it? Like if it's something that they don't know or something they don't understand, like it's just human nature to be afraid of something or not want to be a part of it. But it's interesting how you say, like, you know, meeting them, you're putting it's becoming personal because they know you personally, as opposed to it's just like this ambiguous group of black artists. You know what I'm saying? It's like they actually have like somebody they can refer to, like, so the next time somebody's like, oh, all black artists are this way, you're like, you know what? I know this one dude. Yeah.
And that's where when I did my apprenticeship with Humberto Gurriel, who took me in. I was airbrushing his door one day. He asked me to come in. He was like, you know what? You can draw. You want to learn how to tattoo? I was like, sure. And he's of Guatemalan descent, so he tattoos a little different than what I would like to do. But nonetheless, I took the apprenticeship. I took on what I could learn. And about a year into my apprenticeship, Chris gave me a call. He said, come down to the shop. Come talk to me real quick. So a young lady, this is before I even knew the ethics and the morals of a tattoo artist. I was just tattooing whoever came in and gave me some money. I was in my apprenticeship. I was just trying to make money. He was like, you did some lettering on this girl. Slow down. Stop trying to rush and make the money. Do good work.
Yeah.
The name is going to be built off your work. It's not going to be built off how fast you can do it or how cheap you can do it. It's going to be how your work looks down the line. That's not what I was being taught. I was being taught, hurry up.
Yeah.
Go to the next person. It was a street shop. And there were tattoo parties everywhere. It was very hard to stay in the shop and give someone half your money when somebody was at grandma's house getting all the money. Yeah. But putting themselves in a dangerous element. So when we used to do conventions, I would walk up to the artists like the Paul Booth and people that I just had read about in books and introduce myself and be like, and just talk. And I didn't recognize it, and I didn't recognize it until one day I was at a convention talking to Carl Grace and Josh, which was Josh Payne. And somebody came to take a picture with him, and I went to step out the booth. And they said, nah, stay right here. Yeah. And I was like, but they said, nah, you're on the other side of the camera. Yeah. And I thought about it, and I was like, that was like kind of like my little initiation. That was a couple of years ago. Yeah, and dope. Ever since then, I just kind of always kept it on that level. Pat on the back. Yeah, I really appreciate it to this day. Like every time I see those guys who like hang out at conventions and everything, and like Josh Payne won Ink Master this year. I was showing people his work years ago, and it was like, he's good, but you know. But then now he's on TV, everybody thinks he's good. Yep. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, man. It's hard to put yourself in that environment because you don't know how people are going to receive you. You know what I mean? I mean, for obvious reasons. Right. But you know, you'd be surprised how many people are more willing to adapt or adopt other cultures into tattooing, because the American traditionalism is such a huge percentage of the tattoo culture in America, right? And even like if you look at, I know Oliver Peck talked about this, how when he started, he was just a skater kid, you know, and this punk skater kid, and it was like all these bikers were the ones tattooing. So him coming in was like, the fuck are you doing here? Right. You know what I mean? And you know, in the world that I grew up tattooing, it's a lot of these more like punk type dudes tattooing. So I feel like, I mean, I can only speak for my culture, like just as a Latino trying to tattoo and come in, I feel like it's like that. It's like, well, that culture, that like hip hop culture, that Latino culture isn't a part of this thing we're doing, but inevitably it will be. Like it'll just become a huge collective. I mean, look at basketball, football, right? Tattoos are becoming a part of that culture, and it's just kind of spreading.
It's crazy
That's
because
kind of what pushed me into tattooing even more was the lack of black tattoo artists.
or representation.
Me going, I got a couple, but the time that I spent in tattoo shops, Capitol on Georgia Avenue back in the day, didn't see any black tattoo artists at all. Flipping through magazines, didn't see any at all until I came across like Zulu, Jackie, Miss Jackie, and Craig Foster. But up until then, I saw no black tattoo artists. I would go into the tattoo shops and see them stacked with black people in there.
Right.
At the time, it was getting hot. That was when Rodman was getting all his tattoos. Pac,
right.
All those guys getting their tattoos. So it was popping, and everybody wanted a tattoo. And you go in a tattoo shop, and there were no black artists. So to me, that was like a light bulb moment, because at the time I was painting and drawing. I knew how to do the shit, but it was like I didn't know how to translate it to the skin. So, at that light bulb moment of realizing I didn't see any black tattoo artists, then noticing how actually business was conducted with black people that were there. It was more of an assembly line thing.
Right.
Nobody was really taking time to, talk to anybody and make sure that that's what they really wanted. It's that was the era back then. It was flash on the wall. So you come in and it's lick 'em and stick 'em. Next, next.
Well, that's how that style developed.
Right.
Yes.
And I think from in that period of time is kind of where I saw where, okay, you can either go with the flow or you can, create your own lane and funnel traffic from the mainstream because you see a better way to do it.
Yep.
And to me, one of the biggest things, I guess, when it comes to dark skin and tattoos and stuff like that, is that a lot of the images that the darker the skin, the larger you have to go with it. So, I think a big deterrent was for one on the consumer end. If I got to get it this much bigger, he's going to charge me this much more.
Right.
And so I'm just going to get it at this size. Now, for what it's worth, it's on the art. It's the artist's responsibility. However, and sometimes you gotta play that fine line of balance of, am I paying my bills?
Right.
Or am I, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if somebody's pressing, they want to I want to get the heart this big on my wrist, and I'm telling you it's going to look stupid, or I'm telling you it's not going to, be the best thing. But that's what you want. That's what you want to pay your money for. I'm gonna get it.
Right.
So we kind of have to bear the burden of trying to give somebody what they really want and do it so it looks good, not just when they walk out the door 4 or 5 years down the line.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're trying to sell somebody on getting something permanent, it's not going to change and so forth and so on. You better make sure you don't see them again unless they want something else.
Right.
He said he made a good point about the flash on the wall argument. Now, it's easy to do drama masks on anybody.
Right.
But if you're doing the cherub baby angel, and it's clearly a white child, and you're tattooing black people,
True.
You come, they be like, well, I want my girl to have Afro pop. I want her to be a little black little girl.
Right.
So you have to, and therein comes the custom side of it.
Right.
So you get to actually conform to your client and yourself and make sure that it's an agreement between you and your client that it's a piece that they want and the piece that you want to give them, and it's black. Because
that's interesting. Yeah, I never thought of it from that perspective. It's like, you're kind of forced into a situation where you are a custom artist.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're at a flash, I never looked at it from that perspective.
Very much
right.
so. Very much
That's interesting. So, what inks do you use for tattooing?
My blacks I use Dynamic and Pelican. Not Pelican.
I was
Talons.
gonna say Pelican. Where you getting
I mean, it's hard to find Pelican. I know a couple
They stopped
spots.
selling to tattoo artists. They like actually drew a line in the sand. It was like, we will not condone using our ink for tattoos.
Oh, Pelican?
Yep, Pelican.
Wow.
So they started selling they wouldn't sell the big, what was it, the 16 ounces?
The
They would
little
only sell the
short
little
joints.
ones for that reason. And then I think there was a huge drop in their sales
Of
because a
course.
couple months later,
Of course.
they started selling the
Cut
big
out.
ones again.
Who's using Pelican ink?
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
But it was
besides
great.
tattoo artists.
But it was actually a good thing for our industry because everybody was like, well, shit, I know how to make black.
Right.
Boom.
Everybody's got the double boiler out, double
Yep.
boiling it down,
Exactly.
making double black.
So that's why you have all these companies.
So you have
now.
all these companies. I used to use Kingpin One, all the color companies like Fusion and Eternal
Yeah.
have their black inks, but I use Waverly Dark Black, Waverly Bluebird to break down my gray wash,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course the other companies. Being on the convention circuit, you usually get a sample of everything. So there's Helios has a Suicide Black, which is just like Waverly Black. It's really thick and messy, but it's there. Once you outline something with black, it's there. World famous, legendary black, really good. So those are some of my go-tos as far as myself. What black do you use?
Silverback. I used to use Silverback. I still kind of do. They also make the what is it? The Stupid Black. Yeah, Silverback makes the.
That's the
Stupid
BJ Black. That BJ Betts, the line in
Yeah.
black. That's really good. I
So-
use their gray wash too.
So I mean, they kind of talked me into this because I was happy with Silverback, and then they kind of mentioned it was like that, but they compared it to. They said it's silkier, and that's what sold me on it. I was like, yo, that's
So
what
the
I'm
thing
looking
is,
for. So
I was doing the convention. Mario Barth makes that, which is intense. I was at the launch
for that,
for not the black, the line in black, for his gray wash.
Okay.
So when he showed it to BJ, I was there when he handed it and said, "Look what I got for you."
Right.
So he had the step downs for his gray wash. So which is cool just to be standing there when he handed it to him.
absolutely. Yeah, it's a phenomenal ink. I like it.
Yeah.
But to your point, for darker skins, I do like more of like a Stupid Black where it's like boiled down.
Yeah.
It just needs to be thicker.
And sometimes it's and it all and I don't know if you draw on or use stencils. It all and you got to blot and you got to make
Right.
that line bold and you want the drawing to stay on the skin. So some of them blacks are messy and you have to white. You have to use water instead of green soap, and it's all those variables that makes it. You know what I'm saying?
It's difficult.
It's kind of like, I've been using Talons since damn near day one.
But dynamic is dope. Dynamic is very dope.
Yeah, I mean, I've switched
The bottle is so little.
mainly
you have to order like a
mainly
couple of
to
bottles.
Dynamic, but I mean, the reason why I've used Talon so much and so long is because it wipes away easy, and especially if you're working on dark skin and trying to save your stencil and stuff like that. And, I know with Talons I can get through, and if I need it to be a deeper black, I'll use my Dynamic, and I use it generally when I'm doing my shading, and all my deep black is going to be Dynamic.
And that kind of brings up a good point though. Like, do you think that people stray away from tattooing darker skin just because of how difficult we're saying it is?
I would say, I'm going to address the difficult term because me going through my apprenticeship and working in other shops and hearing the word difficult, I kind of approach it from a different angle because it is what I am, and I can't call myself difficult. And me looking at it in the aspect of what variable is different from other skin that makes it difficult.
Right.
And which to me I saw it as a little softer. So like a lot of the machines and how tattoo machines are made, like myself personally, I don't use any irons anymore because it hit a lot harder than what I need. And as far as the healing process, just kind of paying attention to people's skin when they heal and during the healing process and coming back, going through different types of needles to see, just playing around with different concoctions and trying to come up with the right formula so that I see this person 2 weeks later and is it a heavy scab or
Right.
I'm at the point now where some people Some people scab, some people say it didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So I think once I kind of changed the underlying thought process in my head that it was difficult, and it's just a matter of adjusting. So it's a matter of just whether it be the machines you're using or your hand, and that to me taught me how to tattoo all types of skin. So it wasn't a thing of kind of being limited to just making this image look good in white skin versus dark skin or Hispanic skin or Asian skin or any of that sort.
It's with darker skin is like sun-beaten skin. So there is darker,
older
white skin, older skin, softer skin. Like if you meet like an Irish girl who hasn't got any sun, her skin is really soft and supple, and the needles tend to bounce off of her skin. Whereas you use smaller groupings on fair skin, on darker skin you use larger groupings. Contrast. You step your shading down. On fairer skin, you have to step. You can do more steps. You can do smaller lines, 3s, 5s. Darker skin, you're going to jump up to 11s, 14s for big, bold, even 18 liners or shaders just to get that big, bold, sculpted line.
And so bigger, just overall.
Just overall, and being, like I said, making that connection with your client that if you want this to look good, you're going to have to compensate some my way as well. I know that's what your budget says, but I'm telling you what the art says. The art says we have to do it larger. You don't want to lose this nose in 5 years because we did it so small that it's going to disappear.
But I mean, that doesn't necessarily have to be a deterrent, right? Because if you're making it bigger, but you're using 18 liners and say like a 32 mag, like the amount of time that's going to take isn't that much more than something small that's super detailed.
Exactly.
So looking at it like size, like, oh shit, he wants to make it bigger, he's trying to hurt my pocket, is just a weird way to look at it. It's like, well, even if it costed more, it's going to look better and last longer. But aside from that, he's using bigger needles, so it might not take that long at all.
Right. I mean, we know that, but explaining that to a client, rocket science to winos.
Right.
Like, I mean, for what it's worth, I ate the cost and been like, fuck it,
Right.
A lot of times because one, when I first got into tattooing, and actually after I went through my apprenticeship and got into the shop, I was a token black guy, so I'm getting all the black clients coming in anyway, whether it be because they want to get tattooed by me or not, or at the time I was just coming up, so I didn't have the clientele. I didn't have people waiting for me. I was open. I was open guy in the barbershop, sitting in my chair. I got you. But
I also think it's just human nature to want to be not just tattooed, but in this case tattooed by somebody you can relate to. So whether that's
race, color,
exactly.
Gender,
how they're dressed.
Right.
Is he punk? Is he this?
It's definitely a thing of identifying this. But as far as, like I said, fucking eat the cost. And I'm not doing shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm not doing shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? This $50 name. I'm not doing shit, and I want to do something that looks good so that I can put it in my portfolio and then sell it back to them. And you know what I'm saying? That's when I can get my money back.
Right.
So in the meantime, in between time, then I'm gonna do it bigger. It's gonna look good. Who's at a loss?
It's almost like marketing. It's let me create this billboard to walk around.
And it's going in my portfolio so everybody else can see it. They're gonna tell their friends, and they're gonna get a tattoo, and they're gonna tell their friends, so on and so forth. So that network of good clients. There are the clients that won't tell who their artist is because they don't want their friends to have better tattoos than them. It's sad to say. It's sad to say, but it happens.
That is like level 10 hating.
But they are out there.
Wow.
It's the same guy you ask, where you get those shoes?
I don't worry about it.
I mean, there's definitely that element to it.
Nah, I feel like being Latino, it just it opened up like a couple doors that I think if I were white, I would have easily avoided having this experience. But it's like, Latinos will range anywhere from Irish looking to black, like dark skinned black, and obviously the majority of us are brown.
Right.
But you know, you start getting Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, and I felt like because of that, going back to like people identifying and wanting to get tattooed, I was the Latino guy. So, you know, you would get Dominicans, Puerto Ricans that wanted to get tattooed, and they just feel more comfortable with the brown guy, and that made me look at tattooing darker skin. And then it just you know, at one point I was working with Chris, and I learned a lot at his shop, just from him, because I didn't know any better. I was just starting out, you know what I mean? And I remember this one time, man, we had a shop meeting, and Chris is like, starts out the meeting, he's like, all right, and you can tell he's like trying to find the right wording, right? Trying to be like delicate. He's like, man, stop using the bright ass intense colors. And it was like, I never thought of that. Like, I just figured you could use ink on anybody.
Right,
like, what's
right.
the problem? And that really made me like go back and look at why. I'm a very curious human being.
What was it
like,
about the
why?
intense colors? What was it?
I'm sorry, I should put a disclaimer in there. There's nothing wrong with intense colors. That was just what I was using at the time. No offense.
Sorry, Mario.
Sorry, Mario.
Sorry, but fuck you, Mario. I don't fuck with Intense ink. Only because and this is my position as far as Intense ink on dark skin and on brown skin. And I don't want to single out Intense ink.
It's been reformulated though.
There are a lot of inks out there that have a white base to them. And if it's an ink that has a white base to them, how that's going to lay in the skin over time on dark skin, whether I've seen it even on white skin over time. If you see somebody's old tattoo and it looks all milky and chalky, and that's not desirable.
Right.
I like to see, or the inks I like to use are more transparent, so that because
Or pigment loaded, I guess the word.
No,
like
no,
loaded,
I
like without
would
white
say-
in it, I guess.
yeah, it's more of a translucent effect
Gotcha.
versus that.
Can I just interject really quick to that point before we move on, and correct me if you disagree. But one of the things like with skin is like people don't realize your skin grows on top of the tattoo, and then that skin that grows on top of that tattoo is almost like if you thought of like saran wrap, and then that saran wrap is tinted. Like
yeah.
a window
Tinted
would be
window.
tinted depending on your complexion. So people who have darker skin, that tint would be like a really dark brown
yeah.
tint. So take that saran wrap and put it on top of, say, like a lime green.
Yeah.
You're gonna get this weird grayish brown tone.
Yeah.
You know, that just looks like, to your point, chalky and just
Yeah.
like cloudy. It looks really strange.
But to tell that to a client, they're like, no, but I want strawberry
Right.
bubblegum pink.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
And they're showing you a picture
I'm
of
like-
like a ginger.
like,
Right.
I'm like, sweetheart, you are chocolate. That's
Right.
not
Right,
really
right,
sure.
You're not Becky. This is or they'll bring you a picture literally on paper, and you know
Right.
Your skin is not.
There was
the
an
color of it.
exercise back
Right.
in at Port Town when Diamond did. Another artist I was working with, Diamond did start drawing his artwork on brown paper bags, just to
Right.
give people an idea how this color is going to lay in
Yeah.
their skin and what
That's a great
can be
idea.
done and things of that sort. So, but like he was saying, that tinted layer, that tinted layer is very important. In which, you know, a lot of artists don't know, don't understand, and it's maybe just as simple as not even understanding or having that eye, but that tinted layer can sometimes be lavender, green,
Right.
blue, magenta.
Yep.
You know, there are tons of colors in people's
Sure.
skin before you even put any ink in them, and knowing how you're gonna counter that color or how to make, you know, my whole thing is, as far as a lot of artists would just slam a solid blue in there. Blue is one of those colors I hate in the skin.
Yeah.
But to make it look blue and stay blue over time, you start with a midnight blue. And you're gonna work your way from a midnight to a cobalt to something very light in order to, after the fade happens in time, that still be able to hold that mid-range of blue in there. that takes time.
Yeah.
And in taking that time and really putting that type of effort into it, you may not even want to, a lot of times I don't charge people for that. I want to make sure that your blue looks blue. And I don't see you again unless you get something else.
Do you tell me you want me to tell you what you want to hear? You want to hear the truth. The truth is it's going to take another sitting. What you want to hear is I'll be done today. So, and clients don't. That second sitting is like dreaded.
Right.
They don't want to come back. They're like, look, I need to see it. I need to see how we're healed. I might need to touch it again. Just come back.
Fuck it. We got a whole bottle.
I got to drive, motherfucker.
You ain't going nowhere.
I got to drive.
Salute.
Salute.
Thanks for doing this, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Cups were getting floppy.
I know. That's what I was telling you. The liquor's eating through them.